Our Holy Gospel lesson today is a part of this life of Jesus where he's being ascended into heaven. And just before he ascends into heaven, he says something very, very important to his disciples. And listen especially to the promise that he has to say to them and to us. I invite you to rise as you're able for its reading. Reading from Matthew chapter 28. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age." The Gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated, and I invite the children to come forward. Bryce has a special word for you today. Come on up, kids. For folks, a little word of wisdom before the sermon begins here. If you can read it, fine, and if you can't, maybe it's even better. This word of wisdom came to me by a very caring friend this week, and I have no idea what he meant by it. And without incriminating him, his initials are M.R. If you want your own copy, talk to Mike Rourke afterwards. He'll get it to you. Thanks for your word of wisdom there, my friend. Now, what keeps you up at night? This is the series that we're going to be addressing for the next couple of weeks as we began it last week. Glenndy addressed the issue of grief and how death itself and its ugly pain that doesn't give us permission to heal quickly at times to keep us awake at night. Today we're going to ask the question, what do we do when we feel lonely? Mother Teresa said it well. The most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved. Folks, there is a significant difference between being alone and being lonely. It's important that we understand that because being alone can be very, very healthy. In fact, I would suggest that even some of us who find ourselves working in public life and maybe finding ourselves what they call extroverts can grow in the area of discovering that there's a real gift in being alone as well. In fact, some say that a real healthy person is the person that knows the balance between being alone and being with other people. Jesus understood the importance of being alone. He tried to teach his disciples that it was important especially after a busy, busy day and meeting with crowds and large crowds, Jesus would frequently go off to a place by himself to be alone. He brought a few disciples with him, and I think what he's trying to teach them is that there is a gift of being alone for the right reasons. Some of us can learn something about that gift. But today we're talking about something entirely different than being alone. We're talking about loneliness. That's not the same at all as being alone. In fact, perhaps the most painful loneliness any one of us can experience is when we're feeling lonely, even when we're in a crowd of people. Or maybe even when we're with a family or we're in a household, but yet we still feel lonely. That is a significant pain. The question for us this morning, I think it's important for us to ask, because I think we talk about loneliness as if it's something out there, but it might be closer than that. And so the question is, who are the lonely ones in our midst? Well, I'm a teenager who desires to be included. But the struggle for the high price of being included is a real struggle, and I'm not sure which way to go. I am a young person who seems to be on the outside of things. I am a person who seems to be watching the world go by as I struggle to find my own place in life. I know loneliness. I'm an adult. I feel like I'm in a corner sometimes, and I don't know how to respond to it. And I try my best to love other people and to respond to the important people in my life, but somehow they don't know how to receive it, and I don't know how to give it. And as a result, I feel estranged, even from my important family and my core working relationships. I'm retired. And I'm struggling to find my place in life. I'm not sure where to find meaning anymore. I have an important decision to make, but it's confusing. Because it seems like if I make a decision that's appropriate for me and for my family, it affects others in ways in which that is not easy. And so I'm very, very lonely. I have been picked on, and I've been bullied in school by my friends. The kids in my neighborhood seem to have always opportunity for each other, but not for me. This kind of deep wound that young people feel, and adults as well, makes me feel like I'm not very lovable. I am a parent who understands loneliness. I'm a parent who cares very, very, very much for my family, and it hurts so much that my children are going through tough times, and I can't seem to sleep because I'm concerned for them. You see, being alone when you want to be included in social life is an issue having to do with social being. But there's no doubt about it, that's real. But the real heavy pain is when that loneliness hits you, and it's an issue not of social life, but of the heart. Mother Teresa was absolutely right when she said the poverty of loneliness is the worst because it makes us feel unloved. We know the pain of feeling rejected. Some of us know very well what it means to be stiff-armed by significant people in our lives or outright abandoned by those that love us. That's the kind of loneliness that robs us of sleep at night. If you are there, you're not alone. When Jesus was on the cross, he spoke for all of us when he felt his abandonment, when he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now, we can be absolutely sure that Jesus knew that he was loved and that he was not forgotten, but he felt abandoned when he was hanging on the cross. And more importantly than that, Jesus felt it was okay for him to giving voice to his loneliness. If you are there, friends, if you're in that spot of heartache and you feel like Jesus abandoned at times, I hope that we can all learn from Jesus. I hope we can find that safe place to give voice to our inner torment, that we can find a caring friend and call one of us on the pastoral staff, or find some place where we can go and unload our burdens as if we're speaking to God or himself. You see, finding that safe place, finding that trusted person to cry out with the agony of our loneliness is so important. I'm afraid that as a church that we have not taught this well. Somehow we have taught the lesson, maybe by not addressing the importance of coming out with our cry for help, that we've given the impression that it's the right thing for us to swallow all that pain and not share it with somebody. I don't know why it is, but we seem to have come to the conclusion that if we share with another person our inner turmoil, that we're weak, or maybe our faith is wrong. But if Jesus could express his loneliness, why can't we? As a congregation, our Saviour's Lutheran is growing into our mission, and we mean it sincerely as wanting to make this place, this church, a safe place. And a place where relationships are valued so much that we dare open up to people that we trust because we know that they're going to reflect the love of our Christ, who will never, ever leave me alone. No, talking about our loneliness is not weakness, my friends. It's the beginning of healing. My dear friends, Those of you who know what it means to spend hours of the night without sleep, don't struggle with your heartache by yourself. We're not created to struggle with this kind of pain by ourselves. I'm wondering if this is not the primary reason that Jesus called his disciples in a group, wanting to teach them that they learn to care for each other and experience the love of a God through the community that Jesus has created for us. Our Saviour is very serious about our mission statement to reach out with a voice of hope. Yes, we long to reach out with a voice of hope to anyone and to everyone who's struggling with loneliness. I wonder who's waiting for us. I wonder where we can go when we don't know where to go right now, knowing that somebody is waiting for us to share our burdens when the dark night of the soul doesn't seem to let us go free. The good news is that Jesus is right by our side. The psalmist was so right when we heard Sherry read from Psalm 25, "Turn to me and be gracious, O God, for I am lonely and afflicted." Yes, as we wait upon Jesus because he is the best friend that we could ever wish for, we know that he comes to lighten our burdens. He comes to help carry our load and to remind us again and again that we are not alone. So when we can't sleep at night because of the dark night of the soul, Jesus is there holding our hand. Jesus is awake with us, really. And there are times in our struggles that the hand of Jesus may look very much like the hand of a friend or a spouse or a family member, or maybe even a pastor who comes just to be with us, hand on hand. But it's the presence of Jesus nevertheless. There isn't a gift more precious, friends, than to be embraced. To be embraced by someone who truly cares for us. Sometimes it's the hug of someone who literally doesn't even understand what we're going through, but they care for us anyway without saying a word. It might be that loving embrace that comes as a surprise from an email or maybe a text or an old-fashioned card in the mail. Maybe that embrace of life that reminds us that we're not alone is that which we faithfully receive from the hand of our loving Jesus when we share in his holy meal. As that wafer is dipped into the wine and Jesus says, "I promise to be with you now and forever. I will never forsake you." So the next time that our heart is touched with a heartache that has scarred us in a way in which that we are robbed of sleep, imagine Jesus there awake with you, quietly present, quietly embracing you with a promise. And the promise is that he will be with us and reminding us that in the end, that heartache, along with all the other heartache, must give way to the resurrection of life itself. Because the resurrection life will always have the final word. Amen.